Hey everyone, this is Kelly Morgan, indie author, indie publisher, and this is another episode of The Author's Mic. And I'm so excited today because, yeah, I have another indie author guest, Jeff Rasley. Me and Jeff have history because in the past, when I had a podcast, Jeff came on there to promote his books, and it's so nice to see you again, Jeff. Still out here doing this indie authors thing, still writing books, still promoting books. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, Kelly. And it's great to see you again and get to spend some time with you.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
I'm really excited. So, I won't we won't get into a full-blown interview, but I will kind of start you off because I just, catch us up to what you've been doing. I know that you've got a new book, but I know you've got several books. So go ahead and tell the readers everything that you've got going on and bring us up to like the present.
Thanks. Well, since the last time we were together, I've actually had three books published. So I've been very prolific this last year and a half to 2 years. And I've changed the focus of my writing. Most of the books I've written before were either sort of serious novels and memoirs and philosophical essays, that kind of thing. But the last three I've written were all works of autofiction. And so, for your listeners who might not be familiar with that term, what it means is I've taken an incident, experience in my life, and then fictionalized it so that part of each of these three books is true in the sense that there's a sort of core central experience that actually happened. But then much of the rest of the story is made up. So it's been a lot of fun to do that because, memoir writing, you really have to try to lay out the facts to be absolutely correct, um, and then in typical fiction novel writing, you create this entirely new world that comes out of your creative imagination. Whereas with these three, I got to start with something I already knew. There's a story already there, and then I could just expand it and elaborate and try to make it more interesting and more fun. And all three of these books are supposed to be, kind of fun because they're semi-humorous, but each one of them also has a serious point and a serious theme within the what I hope is amusing story.
Now, Jeff, are they standalone books or are they a series?
Well, they are part of a series. I wrote a couple books, actually three books years ago, that were novels, and the main character was named Jack. And so the main characters in these three recent ones is also named Jack, and each one of them stands alone. So that they aren't a series in the sense of sequels. But the main character is kind of developed from when he's in sixth grade in elementary school. And then the next book, he's in junior high school. Um, but the previous book, so in other words, the first of the last three I've written, he was in college and he just dropped out of college. So there's it's sort of a sequence to it, but it's not really chronological.
Like a prequel.
Yeah, yeah. So these last two would be considered prequels to the one that was three books ago. And the one that was three books ago is sort of a prequel to three books I wrote a couple decades ago.
Jeff, how many books do you have published?
17.
Wow. 17 published books. And so these last three, what are the titles?
The most recent one is Presbyterians versus Methodist Youth Group at Pokagon Park. And it's a story about two um, Christian youth groups who end up having kind of a rumble over a girl at this state park during a weekend camp out. And the sort of lighthearted theme of it is these, silly kids being kind of silly and having this sort of tribal uh, conflict over a girl. So there's, kind of a Romeo and Juliet story. But then the serious theme within it is how is community created? How is community destroyed? And how can community be restored once it's been destroyed? And then the one before that, which takes place in grade school, uh, is the day Big Ed came to Parkside School. And it's a story that was based on a funny experience I had when I was in sixth grade. Several of us had this little gang. And of course, sixth graders in this small town having a gang is even that is kind of ridiculous. But we were like the cool guys and the tough guys in our grade school. And this kid moves in from LA and he was bigger than all of us and he was much cooler. I mean, he wore uh surfer shirts and sandals, and he was like, oh my God, this guy is so of course we had to take him on in a fight, and he beat all of us up. And that's the the true the true story. But it's elaborated into kind of a culture clash of small town Midwestern um, culture versus sophisticated West Coast culture.
So even though it's set when you're a kid, would you say that they're kid books? Are they children's books? Or are they for adults or both?
They're for adults. I think young adults and teenagers who are fairly literate, I think, could enjoy them. But they're written for adults, and there's also kind of a nostalgia theme to them because they're, being as old as I am, they are set in the previous era of late 60s, early 70s. And so it's got, like references to the Beatles and to psychedelic pop and, sort of what was cool and hip back then is worked into each of those stories, and like, songs that you hear on the radio at the time, that kind of thing. And the
Are the books,
styles like bell-bottom pants.
are they available now?
Yeah, uh-huh.
So where can somebody find the books at?
Well, my wife and I and our own publishing company, which is called Midsummer Books, we have an exclusive distribution relationship with Amazon, as Amazon has this program, and you're probably familiar with it, called Amazon Select.
Hmm.
And so if you sign up for it, you get certain promotional benefits, but it also requires you to distribute exclusively through Amazon. So yeah, so they would all be found on Amazon or through my website, which is just my full name,
And what's the name of the publishing company again?
Midsummer Books.
Now, does Midsummer just publish you, or do you guys have other authors that you publish?
It only publishes my wife and me. Through that company, we have done a lot of editing and coaching for other authors. In fact, we were trying to kind of count up the other day. In fact, Alicia's off on a writer's retreat right now, but we figured over the last 15 years, we've probably edited or coached over 100 other writers. So
Wow.
that's, we do it I mean, we charge, but we also our fees are relatively low, and we do, like you, Kelly, see it as kind of a mission to help, particularly indie authors.
Yeah, I mean, you have to expect to pay for some services, but and that's not the problem. It's the problem where you're being gouged or overpriced or taken advantage of because you don't know any better. Right? I mean, and that's kind of, that predatory kind of attitude that I see in this industry is what really motivates me to try to help others. And I think the most thing that irritates me the most is free information behind somebody's paywall. That really irritates me, where the information is free, but you didn't know where to go get it. So you paid for it because you didn't know it was free because nobody told you it was free, and you didn't really know what you were looking for, let's say. So I find that a lot when I look at just kind of other people and what they're doing marketing wise and the information that they're selling, which is great information, but it's free, and so indie authors we count our pennies. And so you want to get a good return when you do spend money.
Absolutely. And some of the most poignant, sad experiences we've had with other writers were ones who really got ripped off by these vanity presses where you pay thousands of dollars to have your book published, and then you end up with 100 copies of that book in boxes in your garage because the vanity press actually doesn't do any marketing for you whatsoever. Um, and yeah, we've unfortunately, when it's already happened, all we could do was help the writers get published and distributed through Amazon, and give them tips on how to promote and market and
Right.
so forth. Yeah, but it's yeah, indie authors are generally not exactly deep pockets, and yet it's amazing how many scams there are that are directed at
Indie
indie
authors, right?
writers.
And I agree with you because you're right. Our pockets aren't deep. Most of us work full time or have a job where we're paying the bills because, indie author, being an indie author, you may or may not sell enough books on a continual basis to cover all of your financial needs. So this is something that you do on the side, and most people do it because they really enjoy writing in the process and connecting with readers, not so much to get rich, but then you do come across those predatory companies that will charge you right thousands of dollars to get your book published, and you're right, you're left with copies of books and you don't know what to do. So, absolutely. And that's why I really try to help people market and try to figure it out, which is exactly why I have the author's mic. So, Jeff, if
Yeah.
people want to get a hold of you and learn more about you and your books, and I know that your wife is an author, how do they do that?
I have a website that's my full name, Jeffrey, and my mom always called me Jeffrey when I was in trouble. So I don't know why I felt compelled to use that when I set up the webpage decades ago. But so it's Jeffrey Rasley, www.jeffreyraisley.com. And all the books are listed there as long as some nonprofit initiatives and that I'm involved with. And so anybody interested, please visit that website and be delighted to connect with other indie writers.
That's fantastic. So, as always, if you are an indie author and you are looking for a way to promote your book, you can also come on the author's mic. You just have to go to my Linktree. All the information's there. If you're a reader and you are looking to maybe join a new book club and you're open, I just launched a new book club called the IRS, which is the Indie Reader Society. It launches on the 15th. The first book we're reading is mine. Then it's open to other indie authors. So if you're an author and you're looking at a different way to promote your book and you're thinking a book club might be a way to do it, you are more than welcomed and encouraged to pitch the Indie Reader Society, because once we read my book, which is the first book, then we'll be open to reading other indie author books. This book club is dedicated to indie authors. All the information is on the Linktree. All the information to reach Jeff and all of his published work will also be in the podcast description. Jeff, thank you so much for being on the Author's Mic. I really appreciate you. Tell Leisha she has an open invitation. I know she's a writer too, and I would love to connect with her as well.
Will do. And it's just delightful to be with you again, Kelly. And I really appreciate all the work that you've done for other indie authors and just your lovely spirit too.
Well, thank you. You guys go out and make it a great day because you know what? I'm definitely gonna try. We'll catch you next time.